A very good morning. Today we will talk about Wordsworth's theory of poetry. William Wordsworth was the greatest romantic poet in English literature. He gave his own theory of poetry. He said that poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. In other words, he also said that poetry is emotions recollected in tranquility. So Wordsworth gives a in this way Wordsworth gives a definition of poetry. But he says that a poet should use a very simple language. A poet's language should not be overloaded with difficult words. A poet should choose words from common life. He should use the words of the common people, the words of the common people, and he should not choose the theme of poetry which is unfamiliar and unknown to the common people. That is to say, a poet should choose the common subject matter and he should express that subject matter in common words. A poet is a simple man like other common men. Like other common men. He is not different from other men, but only in degree he differs from other men, other people. So whatever a poet sees, it becomes a kind of image in his mind. For example, a common man sees a simple thing, but that simple thing does not have any special meaning in his mind. But the same thing has a special meaning in the mind of the poet. The poet gives an emotional coloring to that common thing. So the poet sees the most extraordinary thing in the most ordinary thing. So in this way, we can read Wordsworth's poetry. In each and every poetry of Wordsworth, we find simple words. He has not used any difficult word anywhere. He has used the word of the common people. And at the same time, he also says that the medium of poetry should be simple verse, and that simple verse should not be very much different from prose. So the distinction between prose and poetry is very difficult to be recognized in this way. Then what makes poetry poetry? If the words are simple and it is expressed in a very simple language like that of prose, then what is it that makes poetry poetry? It is the power of imagination that makes poetry poetry. Wordsworth says that it is the power of imagination, it is the power of heightened sensibility and feeling that makes poetry poetry. So, and a kind of imaginative coloring, a kind of imaginative use of words makes poetry poetry. In this way, we have seen that the poetry of Wordsworth is very simple, and his theory was that the language of poetry should be very simple, very very common, so that the common man does not feel any kind of difficulty in reading poetry. We can take, for instance, we can take any poem of Wordsworth. We can take the daffodils, for example. In the daffodils, in the poem, the daffodils, Wordsworth uses the most meaningful words in a very easy way. In the poem, the poet sees thousands of daffodils dancing in the wind. And how does he describe this simple phenomenon? He says, thousands saw I at a glance. He did not say, I saw thousands at a glance. He said, thousands saw I at a glance. So the words are very common, but the sequence of words, the word order, has made it very poetic. The description has been made very poetic by the order of the words. So, how to use the common words is very important. For Wordsworth, this was it was the duty of the poet to use the common words in such a, an an extraordinary way that it becomes very imaginative and it becomes poetry. Thank you.